My name is Lauren Mitchell. I'm 31, and I never expected the man I once called Dad to steal my future while smiling to my face. If you've ever felt overlooked or betrayed by your own family, leave a comment and tell me where you're watching from. Like this video and subscribe for more stories like this. I was 25 when my mom was diagnosed with Parkinson's. At the time, I had just finished grad school and turned down a job offer in Chicago to come home and help. My brother James said he couldn't do hospitals and moved into a downtown loft with his new fiancée. My dad, he didn't say much at all. He just let me take over. Bills, appointments, even bathing schedules. For 6 years, I paid the mortgage, covered their utility bills, and sent money for groceries. I taught night classes to keep some income coming in and worked freelance just to keep them afloat. I thought we were a team, me and my parents, especially when Mom's health declined. I didn't expect gratitude, but I thought maybe respect, maybe loyalty. But 2 months after Mom died, I found out just how wrong I was. The first red flag was when the bank froze the account that paid the utilities. I assumed it was a glitch until I called and learned my name had been removed as an authorized user by my father. Then came the second blow, a letter from a lawyer. It was the official reading of Mom's will, and I wasn't invited. I confronted my dad, shaking, still in mourning, and all he said was, "Don't come crying to me, Lauren. Your mother and I made our choice." He shut the door before I could reply. I stood outside, stunned, holding a half-empty grocery bag in one hand and my dead mother's scarf in the other. I wasn't angry. Not yet. Just hollow. 2 weeks later, I finally got my hands on the revised will. My name had been completely removed. Everything, the house, savings, investments, was left to James. James, who hadn't visited Mom in her final 3 months. James, who once complained she, quote, took too long to die. James, who once borrowed $30,000 from me and never paid it back. I called him. He answered on speakerphone and laughed. "You're not owed anything, Lauren," he said. "You helped. That's just what daughters do." That night, I didn't cry. I wrote down 4 steps, and I was going to follow each one. I didn't grow up in a war zone, but I grew up walking on eggshells. My brother James was the golden child from the moment he was born. He got the first bike, the big birthday parties, the new shoes, while I got what was left. Hand-me-downs, excuses, and silence. At first, I didn't mind. I thought maybe it was because he was younger. But by the time I was 12, I noticed the pattern. When I won a statewide writing competition, my mom clapped politely. When James passed algebra with a D-, she baked a cake. When I was accepted into a summer science program, my dad said, "James needs the car. Figure something else out." I spent that summer shelving books at the library. James, meanwhile, crashed the car into a light pole 2 weeks later. Dad called it a learning experience. There was never a conversation about college. For me, I mean. I applied for scholarships, worked 2 part-time jobs, and got a degree in education. James? He went to a private university and dropped out twice. My parents covered every tuition bill. He went on to try music, then photography, then finally real estate, which was code for sitting in coffee shops pretending to flip houses. And every time he failed, they gave him more. Meanwhile, when Mom's tremor started, it was me they called. Me who picked up her prescriptions. Me who bathed her when the aides quit. Me who held her hand while she forgot my name. James came by once with flowers. Dad took a picture and posted it on Facebook. My son is such a blessing. He never once posted about me. The night after I wrote down my 4 steps, I opened a box I hadn't touched in years. Inside were receipts, bank transfers, proof of the bills I had paid every month, every year. I had spreadsheets, payment confirmations, even emails from Mom thanking me quietly when Dad wasn't around. I started organizing them into folders. It wasn't about revenge. It was about the truth. Still, some nights the pain came back in waves, like the birthday I spent alone while they threw James a surprise party in Florida. Or the day Mom called me in tears because she had wet herself. And James said he was too busy to come. I wanted to hate them. But mostly, I hated how much I still wanted their love. That's what betrayal does. It confuses you. It makes you think that if you just did more, gave more, bent more, you'd finally matter. But I had bent so far, I barely recognized myself. So I decided to become someone else entirely. Not for them, for me. 2 months after the will reading, I showed up at my dad's house. Not to beg, not to fight. Just to understand. He opened the door halfway, didn't step aside. "Why are you here, Lauren?" he asked. I held up a small folder. "These are receipts, years of bills I paid, hospital costs, mortgage, groceries, insurance, all of it." He didn't look at them. "James is the one who'll build something with it," he said. You were always too emotional." I felt something snap, not in anger, in clarity. "You mean I cared?" I said softly. He scoffed. "You always wanted recognition for everything. That's not how families work." Then he closed the door. Again, this time I didn't feel hollow. I felt done. Later that night, I got a call from James. His voice was smug. "You really went to Dad's with your little paper trail?" "I just wanted answers," I said. "Well, here's one. Mom changed the will because she didn't want you using her money for therapy or cats or whatever you people do." Click. I stared at my phone, stunned. You people. I wasn't even a person to them anymore, just a burden they had quietly discarded. It was the final push I didn't know I needed. I spent the next week emailing law firms. Most didn't want to take on a family case without something concrete. But then I found Carla Rodriguez, a probate attorney with a reputation for tearing through revised wills like tissue paper. I sent her the documents. She called me back 3 days later. "Lauren, this isn't just financial abuse," she said. "It's fraud. The will was altered after your mother's mental competency was in question." I nearly dropped the phone. "She was still living at home when they had her sign it," I whispered. "Exactly. You didn't just get disinherited. You were erased while you were caregiving full-time." That weekend, Carla filed a formal challenge to the will. The court issued a notice. James texted me one word. "Really?" I didn't reply. Let him sweat. Let them both realize I wasn't coming to cry this time. I was coming to collect. The court date was set for early fall. James tried to delay it twice. Dad didn't even show up. But I did. I walked into that courtroom with everything they ever dismissed. Proof of payments, emails from Mom before her mental decline, voicemails where she thanked me, even begged me to forgive Dad's coldness. Carla was surgical. She presented Mom's medical diagnosis, early onset Parkinson's with signs of cognitive impairment, documented before the will was revised. She showed how James had taken out loans using the estate as collateral before the will was finalized. Then she paused and pulled out a video. It was a home recording, time-stamped, just 3 weeks before Mom passed. She was in bed. I was feeding her soup. She whispered, "You've always been my rock. I don't know why your father keeps giving everything to James. He's never here." The courtroom went still. James turned red. The judge called for recess. And 3 days later, the verdict came in. The revised will was voided. The original, signed before Mom's decline, named both children as equal beneficiaries. But that wasn't all. Because James had misused the estate during probate, the court froze his access and appointed a financial auditor. He would have to pay damages. He called me that night, voice shaking. "This is your fault," he hissed. "You destroyed the family." "No," I said calmly. "You did that when you thought I'd never fight back." Then I hung up. 3 weeks later, the house was legally mine. The accounts were divided. But more importantly, the truth was on record. I didn't throw a party. I bought new locks, changed the landscaping, and started over. My name was back on the deed, but this time it was the only name. I walked through the empty hallway, past the photos that still hung on the wall. Mom in her garden, me at graduation, James holding a soccer trophy. I left the pictures, but I replaced the locks. Some victories aren't loud, they're quiet, decisive, final. The funny thing about justice, it doesn't always feel like fireworks. Sometimes it feels like silence, like peace, like finally waking up and realizing your heartbeat isn't racing before sunrise. That was me. 1 month after the ruling, I repainted the kitchen, soft sage and cream, donated the old furniture, replaced Mom's broken kettle with one she would have loved. For the first time in years, the house felt like mine, not a tomb, not a burden. Carla sent the final breakdown. James owed over $42,000 in penalties and legal fees. He tried to appeal, but the evidence was airtight. I heard he sold his car, moved in with a friend. Then one afternoon, he showed up at my doorstep. I didn't answer. I just watched through the side window as he stood there in a hoodie, hands in his pockets, staring at the door he once locked me out of. Eventually, he left. No note, no knock, just gone. 2 weeks later, I got a letter, not from him, from my father. It was short. I won't say you're right, but I can't say I'm proud of what we did either. I hope this helps. Dad. Inside was a check for $5,000. No apology, no call, just money. A gesture to clear his conscience, maybe. I deposited it. Not out of need, out of closure. I donated the full amount to a women's legal aid clinic. Felt like poetic symmetry. Sometimes, people don't come back changed. They come back smaller and expect you to make room for them again. But I didn't need their remorse. I had reclaimed my name, my future, and my space. And I had done it without yelling, without begging, without crying. Just like Dad once said, I kept the house. But not the memories. I boxed up most of them, the picture frames, the heirlooms, even the letters Mom wrote during her final year. I wasn't ready to read them yet. Instead, I built something new. I turned the spare bedroom into an office, started tutoring again, then launched my own education consultancy. Within 6 months, I had 12 clients and a waiting list. I bought a new dining table, set it for 1, then 2. When I started seeing Eli, a carpenter I met through a client whose child I coached, he asked why I lived in such a big house alone. I told him it used to belong to people who thought I didn't matter. He didn't press, he just nodded. One night, we sat in the backyard under string lights I had hung myself. He said, "You seem like someone who rebuilt herself brick by brick." I smiled. I had no choice, I said. But I picked good bricks, he laughed. Sturdy ones? No, honest ones. It was the first time I had felt seen, not for what I'd survived, but for who I had become. Then came an email. James again. Dad's not well. He keeps asking about you, said he wants to make things right. You don't have to come, but I thought you should know. I didn't reply, but I sat with it. Dad was aging. Maybe declining, maybe finally realizing what he'd done, but I wasn't the same girl who once stood on that porch with a grocery bag and a broken heart. I was no longer seeking acknowledgement from men who only saw my usefulness. So I sent one final message, not to James, to Carla. I had her draw up a letter, not aggressive, not dramatic, just clear. My client will not be re-engaging in matters of personal estate, healthcare planning, or reconciliation. This is a boundary, not a punishment. Thank you for respecting her peace. I never heard from my father again, not directly. James tried once more, a voicemail this time. He said Dad had fallen, was in a care home, and that he sometimes stared at the door like he expected someone to walk in. I didn't call back. I didn't need to. I had already said goodbye the day he shut the door on me and told me not to cry. That was the last day I ever begged for space in someone else's house. Now, EA. I hosted my own dinner parties, lit my own candles, signed my own checks. The house they tried to take from me became the home I built for myself. One decision, one clean boundary at a time. There were no grand reunions, no weepy confessions, just distance, just truth. And with truth came peace. I went back through Mom's letters eventually. One stood out, dated a month before her decline worsened. If you ever feel like you don't belong here, Lauren, remember this. You were the one who held us together. Not James. Not your father. You. If they don't say thank you, I will. Thank you, baby. I see you. I cried that day. Not because I was broken, but because I was finally whole. I still live in the same house. The mortgage is gone. The old bitterness has faded, like wallpaper left too long in the sun. And every time someone asks me how I managed to hold it all together, I tell them this. I didn't. I let it fall. Then I built something better. Have you ever had to walk away from people you once called family? Drop your story in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories about reclaiming your power. Send this to someone who needs to know they're not alone.